Hey everybody, Greg here from parkjourney.com. So today's video was supposed to be a video of the four Southern California food festivals. So Taste of Berry Farm, Touch of Disney, Taste of Universal, and the Seven Seas Food Festival at SeaWorld. We're only going to be reviewing three of those today. And before we get into the review, I'll kind of explain why. A friend of ours, Eric, had gone to Seven Seas on Saturday, and we were actually down in San Diego. We had done Disney on Friday and went out to the desert on Saturday, and then we were going to do SeaWorld on Sunday. And then Eric had kind of DM'd us and texted me some pictures of SeaWorld on Saturday. And the crowds were just insane to us. So we kind of just decided Sunday morning we weren't going to go. So we just checked out of our hotel and drove home after that. So it's just, we just weren't comfortable with the amount of crowds that are there. Apparently with the zoo guidelines, they're actually well within their capacity limits because there are no capacity limits on outdoor zoos. Only the indoor stuff, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. I think it's kind of a flaw with the system. But for us, we just weren't comfortable with that. Plus, according to Eric, they actually weren't even checking reservations. So you have to go on their app or their site and make a reservation, and they just weren't even checking that. And then he was talking about mask guidelines weren't being enforced, and things like that. So for us, we haven't gone through like a whole year of being safe and staying home just to kind of throw in the towel at the last minute when we can see the end. And so we just, again, we weren't comfortable with it. We did get the lanyard, so hopefully we'll be able to make it out and feel comfortable going before it ends on May 5th. If not, then maybe we'll just do a giveaway for the lanyard or something for somebody who is going to go. Anyway, so with that, I did want to kind of go through the other food festivals, the three that we did attend, and I'm going to kind of rank them. I'm kind of going to go through different categories and talk about these food festivals. So I've got my little checklist here of things I'm going to kind of go over. So, but before we get started, make sure you go ahead and click the subscribe button on our YouTube channel. We got a lot of great stuff coming up this week. I'll be at Magic Mountain on Thursday for their opening, which I'm super excited for, obviously. So the way that I'm going to actually rank these is by categories. So first I'm going to start off with the entry procedure. So, getting into the park, the temperature checks, just crowds getting into the park, things like that, the bag check, all that stuff. So we'll kind of start there. And then I'm going to talk about the in-park experience. So were there enough tables for seating? Did it feel overcrowded? Were the walkways clear? Were tables being cleaned, as people were getting up and leaving? Things like that. So just the kind of in-park experience. And then I'm going to actually talk about the purchasing of the food or the ordering of the food, because Knott's, Universal, and Disney did it all very differently. Some good, some bad. So I'm going to kind of talk about how easy it is to get your food, right? And then we'll talk about the, obviously the food itself, which is all very positive. I don't think that we had anything that was bad. So we'll talk about the food itself. And then lastly, I'm going to talk about the value of the actual experience. And honestly, from what I've heard, which I can't talk, I can't really discuss, is the value of the SeaWorld one was actually probably pretty high, because $75 you get 15 tastings, and then with your pass you get an additional 3. So we would have had 18 tastings for $75, which that's a pretty darn good value. But of course I can't review that part of it. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and just dive right in. So first, let's start off with the entry of the Taste of Boysenberry Festival. So parking at Knott's was free, which is great. I think that's really a positive thing that they're doing. You have to walk through the marketplace, which is always kind of a narrow walkway. So that's kind of weird. As far as social distancing is concerned, to try to get through on that narrow walkway. I wish they would have opened up Grand Avenue a little bit more, for that purpose, but they're using it for outdoor dining for the chicken dinner restaurant, so I can see why they kind of didn't. So kind of getting through there is always a tight squeeze, but it was fine. And then you walk through the building there next to Virginia's. They do your temperature check, they do the scan, and then you walk through the metal detectors, and they have the check there, and then getting in through the past the ticket booths into the turnstiles. Again, not a huge issue. They give you your lanyard right at the gate. No issues as far as that. So other than just walking through the marketplace, it was pretty comfortable. Now Universal, if you've been to City Walk, you know that they do the temperature check in the parking garage before you actually get into City Walk, and then they have the security go as you're going into the park. Now I wish they would have taken this time of being closed for the last year to move the security checkpoints where the temperature checks are in the parking garage, because obviously they don't really have a security checkpoint before you get into City Walk itself. Plus it would have made the experience a lot easier. So the back check and everything is the same as it was before COVID. They've got the scanners that you could go through. They have the no bags line. So that really hasn't changed too much. But again, I wish they would have actually moved that out there. But again, no touch, just there's the scanners, and you put your bags through and everything like that. So, very hands off, no touching or anything like that. And then we move over to Disney. So Mickey and Friends, you park at Mickey and Friends. They've got actually cones separating the cars, which in theory I guess makes sense if you've got everybody arriving at one time. But then we arrived a couple hours after the event actually started, and so we had a hard time trying to find somewhere to park because cones are blocking every other parking spot, and it was weird. But I mean, I see that they're trying, and that's great. And then you walk in and they do the temperature check. It's a gun. They do on your forehead. And then the bag check is the same as it was before COVID. So they're rummaging through your bag with their hands, not very social distanced at all, not very hands off at all. And it's kind of weird that it's Disney that is still doing the kind of old school bag checks like this. And to be honest, Disney's always been kind of behind everybody else when it comes to this. I mean, even Six Flags, they've rolled out completely hands-free bag checks at their parks that have already opened. They've invested in these scanners. You can see some of it here in the video and the pictures from the other Six Flags parks that have already opened. And they've invested in this technology for temperature checks and bag checks, and Disney is still rummaging through your bag. And so that was kind of off-putting, to be honest with you. But it wasn't that bad, but it seems weird that that Disney is still kind of using that lack of technology, and they've had a year to kind of research these things and do that. So again, I was kind of hoping that they would have done a little bit more on that regard. And then getting into the park, you walk through the tram road. I had mentioned a couple weeks ago on Twitter that I was kind of hoping that they wouldn't bring the trams back because it's not that bad of a walk. Well, I take that back. It's a little bit of a longer walk than I had anticipated. And then getting into the park, they give you your gift card and your ticket right at the booth. Again, we arrived a couple hours after the event opened, so we just walked right up to the turnstile. There was no wait or anything like that. So I would say as far as entry is concerned, other than the bag check at Disney, they're all pretty consistent. And again, I wish that Universal had moved their bag check out outside of City Walk. They've taken the time to kind of do that during this time. And hopefully at some point Disney will upgrade their bag check system, from the just rummaging through people's bags. None of the procedures for getting into the parks are perfect. I'm looking forward to actually, again, going to Magic Mountain on Thursday and seeing how theirs differs, and I'll probably do a separate video for that, just for that experience, going back and be able to ride rides for the first time in over a year. we'll do that. So again, as far as entry is concerned, I'd kind of put them all right on par with each other. So now I'm going to go ahead and go over the in-park experience. So just like last time, I'll start with Knott's. So once you actually get in the park, this is not Knott's first time doing this, right? So they pretty much know, how to do the distancing thing and the tables thing. So there are tables everywhere at Knott's. The day we went was sold out. We did not have to wait for a table once. As soon as we got up or somebody got up, there was somebody there to wipe it down. There was no kind of having to just stand around and wait for somebody to get up and kind of hover and get their table or anything like that. As far as the lines are concerned, they've got it down. They're social distanced. They got the lines. They've got the stickers on the ground. When you're walking around the park, there's always, if somebody happened to take down their mask, they're always telling people, put your mask back up, so I think it's pretty fair to say that Knott's is probably the best at this type of thing because they've been doing it, for almost a year now. They did their Taste of Knott's, they did the Taste of Calico, they did their Taste of Halloween, they did Merry Farm, which got cut short, obviously, and then now this. So again, I think it's fair to say that Knott's is kind of far ahead of the other parks when it comes to this. Universal was also very good. They had adequate seating, throughout the entire thing. They had both indoor and outdoor seating in Wizarding World. We sat outside, wasn't very comfortable sitting inside yet, but they did have distance tables and things like that everywhere. They also opened up some of the areas where they don't normally have tables, where by Minions and things like that. They also had a lot of tables out in Springfield. I don't know if they were doing indoor seating inside the food court in Springfield. We didn't go in there, but they had a lot of tables outside. So again, pretty open. No having to wait for tables or anything like that. There was never any issues, things like that. And again, walkways were pretty wide open, and it was also sold out the day we were there too. Now, Disney, on the other hand, um, there was not enough tables. I'm just going to be blunt and say it. A lot of hovering and people waiting, especially around taste pilots. Um, not a whole lot of tables on the main walkway there. Again, having to wait for people to get up. Paradise Park, again, full tables, people waiting. You kind of had a nav table. Things like that. It wasn't too bad towards the back of the park and Pixar Pier and things like that. But there was a lot of space where they could have had tables, and they didn't. So Knott's, they even used the bumper cars. They put tables in there. Universal was using, all these different areas. The patio of Flo's, Flo's itself was closed, which is one of the biggest restaurants in the park. The patio, they had chairs up against the tables, so basically saying don't sit here. And I thought that was a huge mistake, especially considering in the Pacific Wharf area, it was pretty popular area. There was a lot of people eating in that area, things like that. So they could have definitely opened up more of that area in Cars Land, right around Flo's, for more seating, and directed people kind of over that way. So I thought that was kind of a big miss on Disney's part as far as having adequate seating. All right, so now let's go ahead and get into actually getting the food, right? That's the whole point of the food festival, is to eat the food, and you have to order the food and things like that. So both Knott's and Universal did it kind of old school, to different levels of success, and then Disney kind of went full mobile with theirs. So we'll kind of talk about all three again. So Knott's, you get the lanyard, and they basically have a scanner at each of the things, and you have 5 tastings per lanyard, and you basically just go up and you order no mobile ordering or anything like that. And again, distancing and the lines, pretty straightforward. When they first started doing Boysenberry Festival, a few years back, they had like little punch cards, so you always knew how many you had left. So this way, you have to kind of keep track a little bit. Just on your own. I have so many things like that. But very successful, very easy to do. They take your picture when you get in the park, so they know, that it's you. But for example, I ordered all the food, and my wife had her card, and I used her card, and I didn't have any problem, because it wasn't my picture on there or anything like that. No issues at all with ordering the food at Knott's. Lines always moved pretty quickly, things like that. So no issues there. So at Universal, they actually just give you like a ticket, and it has like your 5 tastings on there, and they would just mark them off at the different locations. So a little bit more low tech than what Knott's had, but again, first time they've done it, so it wasn't really that huge of a deal. It was easy to keep track of how many you had left and things like that as well. So I did end up purchasing a couple things, outside of the card, things like that. But again, super easy, no issues at all, just on the low tech end. Now, on the flip side, Disney, on the other hand, they went full mobile. For most things, you could still go up to like a churro cart and like get a churro and a water, which we did when we first got there, because we were starving. We didn't have lunch, and it was a wait for all our food. So you could still go up and purchase things at different places, which was fine. Um, but I have to be honest, I felt the app needed a little help. The app itself was easy to use, to go on and get the food and pick your time and all that. That was super easy to do. But actually figuring out how to use the $25 gift card that they gave you to order the food, it wasn't really the easiest thing in the world to do, to be honest. And I find myself pretty technically, I know what I'm doing, from a technical standpoint, a lot of different things. But for example, like I thought I could just add this $25 to my app, or for $50 to the app, and then it would just deduct from there, the amount of the thing. Well, it turns out that basically every time I ordered, I had to manually type in the gift card amount or the gift card number, in order to do the purchase. So if I spent $12 at one place, it didn't keep the other 13 on there, for example, and then I had to type it in again. The other thing is, if you were ordering alcohol in the app, you couldn't use the gift card. You had to use your card or your Apple Pay or whatever. Which is, I already had my credit card in the app, from when we had our annual passes, and we would use mobile ordering, so that wasn't a big deal, and that went straight through because my card's already there. So kind of the inability to have multiple cards on the app at the same time was kind of a weird thing, and I didn't think it made a whole lot of sense. But once we figured it out, it was fine. And if it maybe it was user error, let me know in the comments, because I could have just not figured out how to do it. But I asked they said, I asked somebody in the plaid, how to do it, and they basically said, yeah, you have to type it in, every time. So I thought that was a bit cumbersome, things like that. But the ordering again was pretty straightforward. Pretty much if you had done mobile ordering prior to the parks closing, same thing, for the food stuff. The wait times were a little long sometimes, but other times it was super fast. So you got to pick your time. We changed a couple of the times because one of our things was ready by Golden Dreams, and we were in Hollywood. So I just changed the time for pickup. It wasn't a big deal. The longest wait was for the Monte Cristo, which other people had said. That was kind of the longest wait of any of them. But again, no big issues there other than just the cumbersome aspect of ordering it. I thought that I shouldn't have to manually type in the gift card every single time, but it is what it is. We got our food, and it was good. So speaking of that, we'll go ahead and get into the food now. All right, so let's talk about the good stuff. Let's talk about the food. So, if you've been following us for a while, you know that we've already reviewed both Knott's and Universal, and kind of told you what we liked at the food places. And we're going to have the Disney one up with this update, so you'll be able to actually read our blog post and see that. But I still did want to kind of talk about the food a little bit at all three of the events, because obviously that's the point, right? So I will say, I'll start off with, we didn't really have anything that I would consider bad at any of the events. You know, there were some things that were obviously better than others, that we liked better than most. You know, but there wasn't anything that was necessarily bad at any of them. So kudos to all three parks for really, you know, doing great things with the food. So at the Knott's event, some of our favorite dishes were the shrimp tacos, which were really good. You can see, I'll put some of the pictures here as I'm kind of going through these things. The bread pudding, which was fantastic. But then again, I know some people that went again a couple weeks after we did, and they got the bread pudding at the place near the bumper cars and said it wasn't as good as the one from the bakery. So if you're at Knott's, they actually have multiple locations where you can get stuff. So I guess on that side, I would say if you're going to get the bread pudding, get it at the bakery instead of the place over by the Schultz Theater and the bumper cars. We also really like the bread bowl with the cheese soup and the boysenberry drizzle. The pork buns with the kimchi was excellent. Obviously, we had the Dippin' Dots as well. We had to try those, so obviously really good. But overall, again, a lot of really good stuff at Boysenberry Festival. The shrimp and grits was kind of a letdown a little bit, just because of the shrimp. I wish they would have used the shrimp from the shrimp tacos in the shrimp and grits. I think it would have been much better. But overall, again, it's Knott's. They've been hitting it out of the park with their food, you know, for years. So this year was definitely no different, even given the situation. Now, when it came to Universal, a lot of the food that they had was actually food that is available in the park all the time. So I didn't really, you know, I didn't really feel the need to have a Krusty Burger, for example, even though the line for Krusty Burger was huge. But you know, if I want a burger, you know, I could get a burger anytime. Although I will say they did open up the lower lot this last weekend, and they opened up the burger place down at Jurassic Cafe, and that's a really good burger. So if that was open when we went, I might have actually done that. But we tried some of the Minion food. The mac and cheese was fantastic. Gabe from Theme Park Duo got the meatball grilled cheese, which was really great, or it looked really great. And then the pudding with the hazelnut. I'm not a hazelnut person, so I didn't get that. But I did get a butterbeer and a sticky toffee pudding. Obviously, can't go to Universal and not get a butterbeer, right? And then a couple of things that I tried that they were kind of really good, and I wasn't really expecting much from them, was the street tacos. You know, being from Southern California, you know, born and raised, you know, we compare our tacos with everybody, or our Mexican food with everybody else. You know, there's Southern California Mexican food, and then there's, you know, Mexican food from Mexico, and then there's everywhere else, right? And typically theme park tacos are not really anything special, but these were actually really good, you know, tacos, not just theme park tacos. And the other thing that was really shocking for me, and this might be my favorite thing that I ate at any of the food events, was the chicken chicharron. I've only really ever had pork chicharron, and these were so good. Just melt in your mouth good. So I hope that that's something they actually keep on the menu for when the park does reopen, because I will definitely get those again. And like I said, that was my favorite thing at Universal, and you know, thinking about the three events, that might have been my favorite thing at all three events. They also had a really good pretzel, the Bavarian pretzel, and I actually got the Bavarian pretzel to go and brought it home because I was stuffed, and I still had two things on my thing, so I got a pretzel and a Simpsons donut to bring home. And we actually dipped the Bavarian pretzel from Universal in the boysenberry mustard from Knott's, and it was so good. It was really good. So kudos to both Universal and Knott's for making stuff that pairs well together. It was kind of cool. And then as far as Disney was concerned, again, nothing really bad. The Monte Cristo, obviously, it was special to have that. I haven't had Monte Cristo in far too long, at least not the Disney one, and it was super good. They had some good tacos, again, not just good theme park tacos. The barbacoa tacos from Cucina Cucamonga were really good. We also had the chicken wings from the Golden Dreams area, which was really good, really nice and crispy. Not a lot of sauce, not too much sauce, which was nice. My wife doesn't like a whole lot of sauce on her wings, so we enjoyed those. We also had a couple of drinks, a bourbon thing, which was great, and then the Jack Daniel's frozen thing. But our favorite thing that we had at DCA was actually the pepperoni pizza egg rolls. They were super crunchy. The texture, it was like the crunchy on the outside, and then the creaminess and the pepperoni and a little bit of kick on the pepperoni on the inside. And then the dipping sauce, they had the red and the green sauce, and then the cheese on top. Again, I think that was our favorite thing at DCA, and something that we are definitely going to try and recreate at home, because honestly, it's probably, not something that's really hard to recreate. And sometimes you don't need to try hard, right? Sometimes the easiest thing to cook turns out to be the best thing. So yeah, I think we're going to definitely try those at home. So maybe we'll post some pictures of that when we do retry, or when we do try. So again, overall, as far as the food is concerned, I don't think there was a miss, out of any of them. I think that the food was really well done. These parks are used to having good food. And the thing is, like, if you think back to theme parks, maybe 10, 15 years ago, food, especially the California theme parks, it wasn't really that great. I mean, let's just be blunt. Knott's they weren't doing for food festivals. The burgers and the stuff at Knott's was just standard, amusement park food. Universal had the restaurants in City Walk, but again, inside the park, they just had, normal amusement park food. And even Disney, other than, like the lobster nachos and, things like that, it wasn't really, wasn't great. Like Pinocchio's Village House was always just and Tomorrowland Terrace was not very good. And even like the Mexican place by Big Thunder was just not great. But again, they've kind of stepped it up too. So I've really kind of enjoyed, looking at me, you can see that I've really enjoyed the evolution of theme park food over the last 10 to 15 years, especially here in Southern California. This was definitely a continuation of that. So you'll definitely will not be disappointed, and you won't leave any of these events hungry. If you do, that's on you. So let's get into the final category, which is the value of all three of these events. All right, so let's talk about the value of these three events. So first, I will say that the portion sizes at all three are pretty comparable. There weren't really snack sizes or anything like that. These were pretty much full-size portions of food. Maybe, for example, like the tacos at Knott's, I would have liked to have 2 tacos on the thing. The shrimp tacos, but again, it's just shrimp tacos. So, but most of them are shareable sizes, and we did. We shared, at all three events, with our obviously with our group, with our party, things like that, being safe, and not sharing with random people that we saw around the park. And we saw friends at each of the events that we knew. But it's shareable sizes, and you're taking a bite or two, and passing it on. So I will say that again, the portion sizes are pretty comparable throughout the three. The food quality, as far as the ingredients and things like that, again, are pretty comparable across the three. So I'm not going to really compare it, as far as this food item I think is worth this, and this food item is worth that. I'm kind of talking on an overall perspective. So again, starting with Knott's, tasting card is $45, and then if you have a season pass, I think it was 42 or 41 that we paid for our Knott's ones. And again, with that, you get into the park, obviously. No rides or anything, but you get into the park, free parking, which is obviously a plus. And then you get five tasting items per card. So when we went, we actually had 3 of us, and then I had purchased an additional card on top of that. So we actually had 20 tastings between the 3 of us. Now, typically with Knott's, when you're ordering alcoholic beverages and you do use the card, you do get a smaller version of like a beer when you're using the tasting card. So we always purchase our alcohol a la carte. So we actually ended up getting more than 20 tastings because of, like, I think we ordered like 3 or 4 alcoholic beverages throughout the day, and we ordered those, separately from our tasting card. But all the food was on the tasting cards, and then we got the agua fresca that was a drink, non-alcoholic drink. So we put that on the card as well. So overall, $45 for 5 tastings, for 5 full-size tastings, pretty good value. I didn't think I was getting ripped off or anything. It was really good value. Same with Universal. Again, it was about $45. Again, it gets you in the park. 5 tastings, full size tastings. So I mean, if you're getting a butter beer, I mean, it's usually $7 or $8, and you're using your tasting card, and that's one of your tasting. So again, I think the value there is definitely there for the Universal one. Again, especially now that they've opened up the lower lot, it just adds a whole other layer to that experience. So I think it's definitely one of those things to consider. Is the other thing with Universal is they are now charging for parking. So it's $10 to park. If you do end up seeing a movie, not my thing. I'm not ready to see a movie yet, but it's $5. But if you have a Universal Pass, it's for free. So they did announce that, so we didn't have to pay for parking because we did have Universal Passes when the park shut down. So even though they paused the payments or whatever, they still let us use that for parking. So we were thrilled with that. It saved us, $10. I mean, but again, $10 is it's okay. They're not charging 25 like their normal parking charge. So that was kind of nice. And then we get to Disney. So as you all know, it was $75 to get the Touch of Disney. And I think I'd mentioned on Twitter, and I think I mentioned on our podcast a couple weeks ago as well, that we don't usually do the Disney events because they're very overpriced. And the reason why we kind of justified doing this one was because we'd had a couple vacations canceled over the last couple of years. We were supposed to go to Florida in December and a cruise. And then obviously all of the Halloween stuff that we would normally do got canceled, and our Disney passes got canceled, our Universal passes, we're not paying for those right now, things like that. So we kind of could say, okay, $150 to go and walk around Disney for a couple hours, was kind of worth it to us. We hadn't gone to downtown Disney at all since that had opened. The only park that we had actually been to was Knott's. I went for Merry Farm, and then we went to Boysenberry. And then we drove through Magic Mountain for the holidays and then for the car show. So, hadn't done anything. So it was kind of, when we kind of factored all that together, it was like, okay, we're willing to pay the $75. Now, that being said, it was $75. You get a $25 tasting card or gift card each, and it includes parking. Well, we drove in the same car. So we basically paid, so if it's $25 for parking, and we bought 2 cars, we basically paid $50 to park at Disney. $25 to get into the park, and then $25 gift card. So in that regard, if they were saying it's $25 for parking, but we're giving it to you for free because you bought a thing, if you carpooled, they technically should have given you another $25 gift card because you all arrived in one car. So in that one, it kind of was like, it was kind of weird if they were saying parking is included, but if you arrive together, you still are both paying for parking. So that was kind of, it was off-putting. So I would say value-wise, Disney definitely was the least value-friendly. But oddly enough, Disney was the ones we saw the most amount of kids at because it's Disney, right? But I mean, we saw families of like 6, 7 people, and I was like, I can't imagine, to be honest, paying $75 for my family of 5, you know, to just go to Disney and walk around. You're talking, you know, almost $400 just to get in the door, just to walk around a food festival at Disney. So I can't really say that I would recommend that to a huge family, but we saw huge families there, and obviously it's sold out every single day. So Disney knows what they're doing, right? But on the other hand, I would say, like, if you have a family of 4 and you want to go to Knott's, and it's free parking and you have your kids, I would say, and they've got stuff in Camp Snoopy, I would say that's a really good value. But again, for us, it was okay. But it definitely, you're definitely paying the Disney premium with that. So I would say, again, all 3 events were really good. If you're a fan of theme parks, I would say you won't be disappointed in all of them. I think Universal's added a couple of additional days to theirs over the next couple of weeks. Don't have a park reopening date for them as of recording this. By the time it comes out, who knows, we might have an opening date for Universal. Knott's, I know, is going until May. So definitely, if you can, check out Boysenberry Festival. We've talked about going back again for a 3rd time, and we might just do that. Touch of Disney is obviously completely sold out, and then obviously those parks reopen on the 30th. So, they're not going to really add any more days or anything like that. I wouldn't imagine. So, if you don't have tickets yet, sorry. But for those of you who do, you're going to have fun. But you're going to pay Disney prices, so just be prepared for that. But overall, again, I really am thankful that the parks kind of did this, during this time they can't be open. I think it was a great alternative to get people back to work. The cast members at Disney, the team members at Universal, and the employees at Knott's, they are also so happy to be there. We didn't encounter any issues. Everybody at the parks was friendly. They were, making sure that, you were comfortable. The other guests were, making sure that they weren't crowding you. There was a couple of times where we noticed in line people kind of not really adhering to social distancing at a couple of the parks. Not at Disney, honestly, a couple of the other ones. But, most, 99.9% of the people were, being cool about it, and, no issues at all. So yeah, I definitely say if you're up for it, and you want to get out, definitely check it out. Again, Knott's is probably the easiest one to get into now, considering that Universal, I think this might be the last weekend for it coming up. I know Knott's has a lot of openings for Boysenberry Festival, so definitely check it out. You will not be disappointed with any of these events. And for those of you that are going to these events over the next couple weeks, enjoy, have a great time. Let us know what your thoughts are in the comments. Thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed kind of this different kind of breakdown of these events. And we can't wait to get back to actual reporting on open theme parks beginning on Thursday with Magic Mountain. So look forward to that. Make sure you're following us on all of our social media because we are super excited to be at Magic Mountain on Thursday and bring you all that fun. All right, take care, everybody.